Welcome to, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of this RGM Experience podcast with me, Carl Maloney. Hope you're all doing all right this week. And we start another week in music, delving into the grassroots music industry and beyond. And we're definitely searching beyond today with today's guest, Tom Hingley, mate. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, nice one. Well, I had the pleasure of, last time I saw you live was in Macclesfield, down in a church for Party in the Pews, mate. And it was just an amazing experience to see you again after all these years. For me particularly, just blasting that voice out in a church. It's still there, isn't it, mate?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm 59 now. My voice is getting a bit deeper, but I kind of normally go to the gym every day and do like 90 minutes. I didn't do it today because I drove back from London last night and got in at 5 in the morning, so doing a gig. So I do kind of go to the gym quite a lot and try and keep that upper body strength going because you need that to sing.
Really? So what kind of like exercises do you do? Is it just all neck stuff or?
No, kind of just go on a cross trainer and I do an hour on there and I just do a rowing machine. I used to do a bit of running, but my daughter's gone to a secondary school, so I have to take her in the morning. So I used to go at 6:30 in the morning and I have to go at 8:30 in the morning now, so I don't get the time for the extra 10 or 15 minutes on the running on the running machine that I used to. But I try and do that every day if I can.
Yeah, well, I've reached the grand old age of 46, and I do like to get to the gym every now and again. It does set you up for the day, doesn't it? I suppose
It has a very positive emotional and psychological kind of aspect. Not very rock and roll. This is supposed to be talking about being rock and roll and being like the new Jim Morrison and Messiah talking about trainers. It's great.
Oh, I've got some good trainers and all that. We'll talk about that.
Of course, no worries.
So where do you really start with somebody that's been successful and had a full career in the music industry? It's quite a rare thing, isn't it, for people to have the holy grail of being able to piss about in bands all their life, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had a very lucky life. I mean, the thing is, it's a bit like when you talk to people, sorry, because I'm probably going to lose half your audience within one sentence, but it's a bit like when you talk to people who've been in Doctor Who, like the classic series that was going from 63 to 89. They always say the same thing. I'm going to say the same thing with being in Spiral Carpets. It's like you're involved in something that people still love and people are kind of emotionally invested in. And so if you've been involved in something like that significantly, there's always going to be a place in people's hearts for you, I think. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, well, it's always fascinating to me, people's journey, and we speak to people every week on this podcast, just speaking about their journey through it all, and it is completely different for everybody. There's no right or wrong way to do it, really, particularly these days where it's completely different to back in the day when you first started. How do you find it, the industry now compared to back in the days when
I'm quite a little niche thing. I'm not a big star. I kind of just keep on whittling my stick. I just keep on ploughing my furrow, and I kind of, I still record albums. I've been working on 2 albums. Well, I've just finished an album which has come out now called The Grand Mal. Just working on a posthumous album for my oldest brother, Peter Hingley. He died last year, and we were working on a record. He had like cancer, so we were working on this record called Secrets Gardens. It's a record that's going to come out next year. So I'm always working on some kind of project. But I just keep going, really. I mean, I don't get everything right. I'm not a massive artist. Generally, if you come up to me and speak to me at a gig, I'm probably going to be all right with you. I get a little bit irate sometimes. I did a gig in Manchester about 2 years ago, and there were a couple and a bloke, and they watched me carry all my gear out of the car. It was quite down a flight of stairs. It took me about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And when I finished, they said, "Can we have a selfie?" And I said, "No, you just watch me carry all of my stuff out to my car."
Yeah,
and it wasn't like they didn't say it out of politeness. I said, I'm now going to lose the other half of the audience. They didn't say it out of politeness. They said it because they were lazy asses, because they didn't want to help me out with my stuff. I mean, I don't expect people to help me out, but I think if people want to take your time taking a picture, I think maybe they could have offered to have helped. I thought that was, and then when I said, "You just watch me carry 30 things out to my car," no, I'm going.
Yeah,
I might maybe sound really unreasonable, but it's just kind of,
Well, as a bloke with a profile, are you conscious about people having the phones and filming you and having reactions to people out there in the big old world?
You have to be generous. I mean, you have to be generous. And the thing about selfies is I sort of don't mind doing them, but people think we're in the European Court of Human Rights, and they think there's a European right for having your selfie done, and there
Yeah,
isn't.
yeah.
Most of the time I will do it, but it's like I don't know. It's like I did a gig recently up in Scotland, up in Irvine, in an art centre up there, and it was really well done. There were 150 people coming in this little theatre, and I stupidly sort of sat in the little bistro which adjoins the little theatre to eat, and the promoter said, "You sure it's a good idea? Because all the people here to see you, and they'll probably mind you." And I sat down, and the food hadn't come. This guy came and said, "Can I do a selfie?" And I said, "Do you mind if we don't?" I said, "We can do it. It's two 45-minute sets. We can do it just before we do the show. We can do it in the middle of the show. Or we can do it after the second 45-minute set." And he had a complete meltdown. He wasn't a bad bloke. He just had it. He was so excited about the gig. He had a complete
Yeah,
meltdown. He goes, "Well, it'll only be 2 minutes." I said, "Yeah, it won't be though. Because if
yeah.
I stand there and I do a selfie with you, there'll be 40 other people who want to do it." "No, there won't." "Yes, there will, because you're only thinking about the way that it affects you, which is completely legitimate. But I don't really want to be stood there doing 40 photos with people." Um, I'm coming across like really awful, sort of
No, no, but it's interesting.
Mariah Carey style kind of tosser. But I did do loads of selfies with people. You can't do one because
Yeah,
the other 39 people want to do them. And then when people sort of see you as, I'm not a big star, I'm very down to earth, but people see you as being sort of very, get a bit starstruck. And then when you realise that you're just a balding middle-aged bloke who farts and eats crisps, they then start wanting to do 18 photos. Then they want to start doing it in sepia. They want to do it standing on one leg, and then they want to go home and get their parrots and come back. And, so I don't mind doing selfies, but not when I'm sitting down to eat food.
I,
You know,
I do think audiences can be more considerate with that kind of stuff, particularly if you've got like if you've got your kids with you, or if you just sat down having something to eat and it's your private time. I know you
I,
are there in the
I'm
big.
not famous. I'm not famous, and I don't mind doing it. It makes people feel good. I'm not so sure about people filming gigs. I kind of have a
Yeah,
feeling that with bigger gigs, probably the phone companies ought to sponsor like a 4 or 5 camera setup, and that you should just be able to download it from the cloud. I don't think you should be
yeah,
able to take video. I think people have got out of experience of life in real time, and they kind of pay a load of money for a ticket, and then they witness it looking through the viewfinder of a phone. And I don't think that's a good idea, really. But I mean, I'm not turning into Mussolini. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it. I'm just saying I think music is about experiencing the thing in the moment and not having a digital eye in between you and the thing that's going on personally. And it obscures other people from watching as well.
well, we do have quite a few comedians on, and in the comedy world, there's a lot more clubs that are getting people to put the phone away in a little pocket and be in the moment in a comedy gig and not film it.
It's difficult comedy because it might take
Yeah,
you 25 years to get together an hour's material. You don't
yeah.
really want that all recording onto an SD card, do you? I don't know.
Or even if you're just trying new stuff out and somebody records that and puts it out, that's a nightmare too, isn't it? Either way.
I think if you talk to my friends and family, the only thing that I'm funny about is paying for things.
Right. Okay. Yeah. What? Just anything.
Anything, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Right. Fair enough. Just anything. General. But it was so. I was doing a little bit of research into the new album. Has it been 7 years since you last recorded?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of lost 3 years because of the
Right.
lockdown, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a long time since. I mean, I did a record with Gordon. Gordon used to be in a band with him before I was in Spiral Carpets. We were in a band called Too Much Texas, and we did a Peel session, and we did a record on Ugly Man Records, and we supported New Order at the Hacienda, and we supported House of Love and The Beloved and the Pastels. So we can't have been rubbish. We did all that. That was before I joined in Spirals, and so we did a little memorial record for his sister and his dad, because his sister and his dad died 3 weeks apart from one another just before the lockdown. So we had kind of had his pandemic before the pandemic. So I did a record with him, which was called Mackay Hingley, and the album's called Decades. It's a really good album. There's a song on it about his sister Angela, who was an artist. There's a song about his dad, who's called Ian. That's a really good album. But that's the record we put out last year. It's just a little spontaneous thing but this is the first solo record I've done in 7 years.
Yeah. So even like forget about the big global bastard that happened. Another 4 years with no Tom Hingley stuff. Were you just soaking in the world or was there not a passion there to do music at that time? I
I've
know.
been doing this band called the Carpets that just
Yeah,
play in Spiral Carpets catalogue, and that's quite a
yeah,
full-time job. We've got
yeah.
two
Okay.
little girls,
Yeah.
and I'm just a lazy so-and-so.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, so yeah. So the Grand Mal's out. What made you it's not a convention album in any way. When I've had a few listens to it, it starts off with an acoustic song, for example, where generally it starts off with a bigger arrangement than an acoustic song, and just working through the songs in it. Actors, it's a beautiful song and it shows off your voice. And there's still elements of the Carpets there as well, with songs like "Take It Like a Woman." You still got that in Spiral's keyboard riff there in the background. That was still nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit like an album sometimes. If our album's a bit artistic, it can be a little bit like a book where
Yeah.
the first song's like an index. Like if you listen to like Arcade Fire, their first songs are always an index to the album, so they always
Ah,
quote stuff that's going to come up in the rest of the album. So I think the songs were written during the lockdown, and I think a lot of people had a hard lockdown. I mean, we've got a garden and we've got quite a park quite near, and we've got quite a lot of facilities. And Kelly works for the Musicians Union, and she just went on working all through it, and she had to work actually harder to try and keep people running their music businesses and their music venues. But we had quite a lucky lockdown, but it was hard going from doing 130 public appearances to doing none at all, to just doing public appearances in your kitchen. And so actors is sort of about the idea that we think that we have free will and that we think that we're in charge of our lives, but it just takes some very major sort of stone in the road, like COVID, to show that really you have very little freedom if those things. I'm not making a political point here, not being an anti-vaxxer. I'm not putting my tinfoil hat on. I'm just saying it's quite easy, really, for that idea of free will to be removed from you and see that actually fate has a bigger part to play in things. And it's not hard to take away the concept that everything is based on free will. Maybe things are more based on fate. And I think that if there's one thematic thing that runs through the album, whether it's a track with keyboards on it sounding a bit like my old band, or whether it's an acoustic track, that idea of fate kind of runs through the whole of the
Yeah.
album, I think.
Well, it's a beautiful album. Just the vocals on "How Could I Be So Wrong?" Sorry, "How Could I Be So Wrong?" That just took me back to. I don't know. Your vocals have been with me through my life as being a Spiral Carpets fan when growing up and that kind of stuff. And just hearing the vocal on that song was such. I don't know. It's such an experience. I'm just like, wow. It's you've still got it, pal.
Thank you. I mean, I used to sing in church, and I'm not religious,
Yeah.
but I think sometimes you can have a bit of soul music for people
Yeah.
who don't have faith in their lives.
Yeah.
And you can do bass soul music for people who do have faith in their lives. Like Tom Jones does it, or Prince did it,
Yeah.
or Rag and Bone Man does it, or Amy Winehouse when she's around did it. But you can have soul in your voice for people who don't have faith.
Yeah.
And and I think the thing about the record was I didn't want to shout on it too much. I mean, that song's kind of about getting a bit jealous, of your partner, and it's sort of about being maybe a bit controlling, which I think happened with a lot of people during the lockdown. And so it's kind of an honest song about the fact we don't own other people. We're with people because they love us and they care about us, but they're not our possessions, they're not our chattels. And it says, we don't own each other, just have the right to find the love within each other. And so the song's really about sort of being jealous. There's a bit in the middle which just says, I'm sorry, and you don't really hear that in songs. I don't think you're going to hear it on the next Rick Astley album. I don't think you're going to hear those phrases on the next Gary Barlow record. You might have heard it on a Nirvana record, but you don't normally people saying, I'm sorry, and that's quite an emotional middle of the album. You had a Catherine wheel and it was nailed to a piece of wood. The epicenter of that album is that bit where it says, I'm sorry, because I lost it. And I've got the honesty to say that, whereas I think a lot of women and men wouldn't say that.
Yeah, why do you think it is so hard to say I'm sorry sometimes?
Well, I always say to my children, saying sorry is actually free. It's not like, wallpaper in the front room, is it? Or getting a new bath, sorry is actually free. It's the expenses in our humility and our ability to distinguish the fact that we ought to say that we're sorry. I don't think a lot of us, I do meditation now, and before everyone switches off and thinks I live under a great big mushroom, I don't. I live under a medium-sized mushroom,
Okay.
but a bijou mushroom. No, but it's like we don't realize how much we bring to the picnic in relationships and interrelationships. We don't realize, we think that our relationships and all the people in our lives are like a big picnic that's being laid out under a tree, and there's like, there's crisps there, and there's donuts there, and there's ham sandwiches. We don't realize that actually we've brought the blanket, and maybe we brought the apples, and we maybe also brought the milk that's gone off. So we don't realize that we bring a lot more to the picnic than we think we do. So saying sorry is about kind of discovering that terrain of where you end and where other people start, and examining it and thinking, yeah, I did that and that wasn't so good. So and you can say sorry for things that aren't your fault, and sometimes that will make someone else say they're sorry. So it's a kind of it's a positive, I think.
Nice one. You've mentioned crisps a few times today, Tom. And I were reading an interview just prepping for today, and I've always been a little bit obsessed with what it's like backstage. And I were reading an interview with you, and you said everybody expects it to be this magical place. You don't want the crowd to be backstage because if they did see it, it's just some old blokes eating crisps.
No, I didn't say that. I said that people think that there's just old men eating crisps. Actually, it's like ancient Rome there,
Ah, right.
It's like
Okay.
peas artists,
Okay. Yeah.
Christians being fed to lions, lions being fed
Yeah.
to Christians, and there's also Jane Fonda dressed up in the gear that she wore at
Yeah.
Barbarella.
That
But
is what it's like.
I mean, what I say about tour is what happens on tour goes straight on TikTok. That's what I say.
Yeah.
But
What's your
no,
favorite?
you're right. We were playing a gig in Scotland, and the support band kept on
Right.
leaving the door open, and the dressing room wasn't glamorous. It was just a pool room,
Yeah.
pool table. They kept on leaving the door open. I said, look, you have to keep the door closed because you want people to think there's some backlaying right going on there. So it's not a load of balding men eating crisps.
Even like festivals, because when I first started RGM, I got the privilege of going backstage a little bit, and it is just a few tents with a sandwich if you're lucky in it, and a few beers or whatever. It's not, and a few buses. There's nothing there. It's a bit disappointing.
I don't like going backstage. I mean, about
Yeah.
25 years ago, maybe was it 25? Maybe 20 years ago, Mark Gates, who used to be one of the top of the people at Geffen, he was at a music conference in Manchester, and he got me some tickets to get in to see Hole, Courtney Love. And Mark Gates was the guy who actually put the running order of Nirvana album together after Kurt Cobain died. He decided what was going to go on it. So he was quite high up in Geffen, really. And he insisted that I went backstage and met Courtney Love. And I mean, I think Courtney Love was great, and I didn't really want to go backstage, and I did. And I spoke to her and it was all right. But I'm not one of those people who finds is terribly comfortable in those kind of situations. And so I don't really like going in people's dressing rooms. It was a funny time the last time. I haven't played in Spiral Carpets for like 17 years or something like that. But we did a gig in the ABC in Glasgow, which sadly is burnt down now. Burnt down with the Glasgow School of Art. And the last time we played there, like Clint is such a sociable person and such a star and everything. And he always knows just so many people in every city, and after there was a dressing room stage right and a dressing room stage left. And after gigs, I quite, with a band, if there's a shower, I quite like to have a shower. So I went up and had a shower. And Clint, because he just knows loads of people and it's a star, like Las Vegas were there. And so I came out of the shower and there's like 60 people in the dressing room. It's like a Marx Brothers film, they're all laughing, pointing and going, oh, look, he's just come out of the shower. It's a dressing room.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you expect me to be doing? Eating crisps? No, but it's like, so I'm just being funny about it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
they could have gone in the dressing room on the other side of the stage. I mean, it was just sort of people looking at you. So, oh, it's funny, he's having a shower. It's like, yeah, it's the dressing room. It's like, do you know what? If you go in a shoe shop, there might be some people trying shoes on. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
weird. Oh, if you go to a shop that does pasta, there might be people eating spaghetti. Well, I'm not being, it's just because Clint's got such a magnetic sort of personality, and that's cool, but just might have been better in the other dressing room.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. What is your favorite crisps then? Let's get it out of the way.
I quite like Seabrooks, but I think that
Nice.
the point about crisps is that we're led to believe that when you pick up a packet of crisps, it makes that crispy noise. It's the crisps, it isn't. It's the packets. That's the greatest bit of packaging.
Yeah.
It's the greatest bit of packaging since Carol Vorderman. It's
Yeah.
like the noise is the packets, isn't it? But they used to have see-through packets, and they weren't trying to be Walkers, and they weren't trying to be Smiths, and they were just quite because I think that brand Seabrooks, it started off some guy just ran a chip shop, and he just started making crisps as something that he did as a side thing, and then it kind of became this great big industry. And I mean, I can go on talking about crisps for all the rest of the
I
interview.
remember the days when you have to pour your own salt in it, mate. Remember them ones?
Yeah, I mean, Smiths are funny because they got taken over by,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola owned Walkers.
Okay.
They sure as hell don't want you to know that, but they do. And they bought Smiths in like 1976. There used to be these old crisps called Tudor crisps. And they used to have really bizarre flavors, kind of like sweet and sour flavor and kind of, Triumph Bonneville oil flavor, stuff like that. It's like a lot of quite bizarre flavors, but they're not very good for you, are they, crisps?
Not
Really?
very good at all. Not very good at all. I've been having what are they? Lentil crisps. They're all right.
Yeah, but you have to kind of. That's the sort of crisp I should imagine Tim Booth probably eats, isn't it? Hi there, I can't use the mixing desk unless it's made out of focaccia. Yeah, it's got to be made out of focaccia, really. Yeah, and the mic stand, can we get a wholemeal mic stand? I'd really appreciate it.
It just makes me feel like I'm being a bit more healthier, I suppose. Even
No, there's
you
nothing wrong
know,
with it. It's just the word lentil, isn't it?
yeah, it does, yeah, it
It's
does.
like a trigger word. It's like the word moist or something, lentil. As soon as you say the word lentil, people are going to start having a go at woke culture in it, that whole go at woke culture, But, anyway.
Anyway, you mentioned the famous hacienda. I believe you used to work at the hacienda. Just going back a bit. Did you used
I
to
used to collect
get
glasses,
glasses?
walking
Yeah.
around collecting glasses, and it was like it was the biggest jukebox in the world. It was quite cool, but it kind of jumped the shark. This was sort of early 80s, so 84 later on. Be a
Mm.
quiet night in the hacienda if someone didn't get shot in the queue, which I don't think is a really great thing, for a
Do
club.
you think Manchester holds on to the memory of the hacienda a bit too much these days?
I think the whole of Britain holds on to nostalgia too much. We kind of caught in this time warp of nostalgia, which obviously, if it makes people come to my gigs, it's absolutely fine. But if it's a
Yeah.
cultural example and any other thing, it's completely out of order. I'm still analysing my own sort of inconsistency on it. But yeah, I mean, that agenda was great. But it's like the whole John Peel thing. They have a John Peel day, but sure, the whole point about John Peel was he was telling you to be individuals. So why would you want a John Peel day?
Yeah.
You should have a non-John Peel day. So that's the end of thing is, yeah, it was great, it was wonderful, but there's a lot of very vibrant music now that maybe, like I always say this and immediately makes people switch off, but one of my daughters, she's like 30, she's nearly 31, but she's really into K-pop, and people, oh, K-pop, I hate K-pop. Whether people like it or not, in 10 or 15 years' time, our children's children are all going to be listening to K-pop, and it's going to be massive. And you get this thing now where I hate that thing on Facebook where you get people saying, "Oh, you look at these people who are playing at Leeds Reading. I don't know who any of them are." And it's like the person who's writing it is 55 or 56, 57. They're just out of touch.
Yeah.
And when they were into In Spiral Carpets or Happy Mondays or Stone Roses or Charlatans or James or Northside, the people who were 55 there thought it was crap.
Mm.
And so people feel like they have a freehold and that their music is somehow so much better than everyone else's. It just isn't true. It isn't. I don't think it's true. I think you have to let people be the custodian of their own taste and their own music. And I'm going to say something that again that some of the audience might find offensive, but I'm not making any of our original fans make their children be into our music. If oh, that's fine. There's nothing more depressing, I think, than witnessing someone who's my age who's got grandchildren and they've kind of drummed into them that they have to love Queen. I think it's very depressing. And if they hated Queen, I think that would be a thing of great. I think that would be a great thing if their grandchildren thought Queen were awful and K-pop were ace. I think it was ace. I think music has changed and fashion, and that's what makes it so exciting is the changing of fashions. And some stuff is classic. If you listen to This Is How It Feels, that's a classic song. It'll all be there for all time. But you shouldn't have to drum into your grandchildren if they don't like it. They're somehow kind of morally defective. I don't buy into
K-pop
that
thing's
at
a little
all.
bit different though. Did you see the documentary on it? Just how ruthless that industry is and how they grind them to the bone, really.
Yeah, I look at it slightly differently.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say is like, oh wow, man, it's just so deep what you're saying, Tom. Yeah, I'm going to go off to the Open University. I'm going to do a 5-year degree on it, and I'm going to wear clothes made entirely out of custard. But South Korea borders North Korea. North Korea is like a communist dictatorship where people have no rights. There's a kind of cult about the person who runs the country. Most people are permanently stoned, which they don't really want people to know in the West. And so South Korea is kind of diametrically opposed against it. And this is sort of economic model. And we're getting quite a lot of things wrong in Britain, really. Like we make people pay for higher education in Britain. I don't think we should. I'm sure they don't in South Korea. Why would you make someone pay to become a doctor or an engineer who makes space shuttles? We should just be funding it free. And South Korea, their music culture is part of this fantastic, energetic capitalist culture that is opposing this communist country in the north. So while it may have detractors and it may have shrapnel and it may have stuff that goes wrong, I mean, I think that goes with any part of the music industry. So I think it's part of this terrific entrepreneurial culture that's opposing. We can go back to crisps if you want, it's this amazing capitalist enterprise that's kind of trying to say to the North, come on, just get with the program, have a constitutional monarchy, and let's just be one country and just realise the potential of both parts of the population and not pour it into a music culture. And I kind of think that's what it is.
Interesting. So we're just reversing a little bit then. One of the other times I saw you with the carpets, it was at Mozfest in Sheffield. And I've always wanted to ask you, so I thought I might as well do it today.
When you say the carpets, you mean my tribute band? You say the carpets?
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because Inspiral's actually played at that
with festival. A K. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because do you want to ask that question again and maybe cut that out? Yeah,
so the last time I saw you in the carpets with a K,
yeah,
was back in Sheffield at Mozfest, and you had this sock thing that you did online. What's that all about? Talk me through that. I just found it interesting. It was quite engaging for the crowd.
I just find it erotically charging to wear.
Nice. Okay.
Socks on my hand. I mean, don't judge me. I mean, if you're gonna judge me, Carl, at least gonna have to put one of those kind of woolen wigs on your head.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. No, I think performance. It's like it can be very serious.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not comparing myself to David Bowie, but he'd quite often do things that were slightly odd and funny, like turning his hands upside down and making them into fake glasses.
Yeah.
And I think it's just part and parcel. You see, people with an audience, generally speaking, they're not paying attention. And what you have to do is you have to get them to pay attention. And people not paying attention is like a bicycle wheel going round. And if you want to get people's attention, you have to stick a spoke in it.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't move round, and then everyone gets on the same revolution of paying attention to what the thing is. So anything silly like putting socks on your hands, whatever, it just makes people talk about it out of context 4 or 5 years later, which is what we're doing now. And I mean, inside those socks, there may have been some fried bits of potato sliced into small pieces, but let's not dwell on that. Beyond talking about it for the next 3.5 minutes. No, performance is all about getting people's attention. And that means stopping them from having this bicycle wheel of irrelevance going around in their head, And the problem is that kind of understanding of crowds and how to manipulate crowds or whatever. I mean, both my paternal grandparents were kind of religious people. My mum's father was a Baptist missionary. He was out in China and he built a hospital there. It's called Harry Wyatt. It's in Shanxi province. He got killed in the Chinese Civil War, but and then my dad's father was a Methodist minister, and some of my forefathers wrote hymns, and they went around the place preaching and trying to screw money out of people. And they say things like, "I went to Burnley," they had a diary, said, "I went to Burnley today, preached for like an hour and a half. The people the people here are really mean." He didn't put it that politely. They only paid me like 4 pence, So I'm basically just carrying on the tradition of what I did before. And you see, I'm sounding like Spider-Man here, but with great power comes great responsibility. People who understood the magnetic quality of crowds and how to manipulate them were people like Adolf Hitler, and unfortunately he used that in a very bad way. But there is a kind of psychology of how you deal with crowds and audiences. A lot of people don't understand it, and I think I do understand it because I have these forefathers and foremothers, I'm sure as well, who did that for a living.
And is it even harder now with phones to grab their attention? You're on tour at the minute. How are you finding it, like live on tour as we speak?
I mean, it's just I just have to work. I'm just not wealthy enough. People think if you've been on top of the pop 6 times, they think you're kind of second relation to Elon Musk, and I'm not really, I kind of got used to performing. I like the attention-seeking, narcissistic attitude of it, which obviously I should never admit to in an interview. But I'll just deny it if you.
Okay.
No, touring is part of my life. I mean, I probably may not do it forever. At some point, it'd be nice to have a dog and not have an email and not have any social media and not have a mobile phone and just be a normal person and go and walk the dog. I think.
What would it take you to get to that stage? What do you think would need to happen?
Probably ill health.
Right, fair enough. Fair enough.
It probably won't be a choice that's foisted on me. It's like, there's this thing that's always said, people are sometimes prejudiced against disabled people. And a disabled rights person saying, it would probably most of us are going to end up being disabled. So people need to have a different attitude towards it, So, So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I love playing music, and I'm held in great esteem by there's a lot of people who love me. I've come to have the gratitude of it a lot more than I used to have. Maybe that's the meditation and stuff, but I'm held in high esteem by a lot of people. I play with a lot of fantastic musicians. Like we're talking about the keyboards on that "Take It Like a Woman" on my new album, Grand Mal, and that's the guy who plays it is a guy called Andy Stevenson, and he used to be the bass player in the Mock Turtles, and he's fantastic keyboard player. And we've had a lot of fantastic keyboard players, and Dick and Kyle Wright, he used to play keyboards for us. We had a little bit of a fallout, which wasn't really his fault, but he's come back in this album band and he's playing bass. We've got a guy called Elliot Barlow who plays drums in a really good band called Sea Fever. He's playing some drums for us. And we've had a couple of guitarists. Phil McIntyre's done a lot of guitar for us. A guy called Carl Markham's been doing a load of guitar for us. And another guy called Steve Marston. He's a bit more a jazz player. So and there's another guy called Lee Shackley who plays keyboards for us. So and Dave Murray who plays bass for us. So I'm really lucky because I've just got this coterie of really fantastic people who also happen to be really fantastic musicians who I play with, and we do a gig and one person isn't available, probably someone else can play, and I'm so lucky
Yeah.
to be able to do that. Really, you're very lucky, really, if people want to play with you and are such high quality people and musicians. That's not something I'm much more grateful for things than maybe I used to be.
I'm sure you've had the question before, but just to indulge me a little bit. So looking back over the years with the Carpets with a C, how do you reflect on that career and the breakup before and that kind of stuff like in today's days? How do you look back on it now?
They don't. I mean, you're talking about Clinton and Graham.
Hmm?
They don't think it was a breakup. They say I just left, but I can't really dwell on that because
Yeah.
we could, it would be a mildly longer conversation than talking about crisps, but probably a shorter conversation than we're talking about meditation.
Yeah.
I mean, they're continuing on with what they're doing.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, being in the band was a terrific privilege. It was a big shoe up, and they'd done quite a lot of stuff before I was in the band. There were some garage band that people loved up in Scotland and around the world, and they supported the Wedding Present and Machine Head, and they'd done a couple of Peel sessions and had a couple of records out which were influential, but there wasn't there wasn't enough of the records to, there were only 300 copies of the first Plane Crash EP. I mean, I saw one in Piccadilly Records, a 7-inch, and I should have bought it because it's probably worth a couple of grand now. So they did these records that were really nuanced and really great, and they were this garage band, and they were very special and very northern. And then Steve left, and the bass player left, and Martin joined, and I joined eventually, and it just became something quite different. It became like a pop thing, it became a very different kind of animal, really, which, we kept on doing quite a few of the songs that they'd done when Steve was singing in the band, but it kind of became a sort of a pop phenomenon. Although we were part of that kind of Manchester scene, we did kind of have our own orbit and our own gravity, which was to do with a bit more pop sensibility, which I think we maybe had when I was in the band. And then, we kind of called it, we knocked it on the head in 95 because we kind of lost our record deal with Mute. And then about 7 years later, we got back together and we toured in 2003. And I may not have all this quite right. I think we toured in 2003, 2005, 2007, 2008. And then there was a hiatus. We were trying to get back to work again at the end of 2010. But I think I can't really go into it. I think it's very different from being in a band when you're 23 and being in a band when you're 43, and the kind of, I've got quite used to being on the stage on my own, and I think they got quite used to being on their stages on their own. I think it's hard to get back to the way those situations were, and there have been some other problems on both sides which I can't really go into. But it was fantastic to be in that band. I haven't played with them since 2008. A lot of people think I have, but I haven't. I've had many conversations with people say, "Oh, I saw you at V 2012." It's like, no, you didn't, because I was doing a gig up in Inverness. Yeah, you were. No, I wasn't. I mean, we can, there's your actual life as a person, and there's your mythic life as a person, and those two things are completely different. But I'm very proud of what I did with them, and they're fantastic people. But they're doing stuff with they do stuff with Steve now, and that's kind of what they do.
Yeah, because they have come back in the last couple of years touring again. Does it confuse people, you being in Carpets with a K and still having the Carpets about with a C at the same time? Does it confuse
Probably,
people?
yeah, probably. But it's one of those things where, I mean, it's, I think, I mean, like, I think it's a quote Graham's, he says, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. If you half listen to something, if you half listen to something that someone's saying, it can just Chinese whispers, it can become something else. But I think there's a lot of younger generation, and they're discovering the records, and they maybe don't know who's in the lineup. But, I do love what we did with them, and I think the future is about finding mutual respect and
Yeah.
kind of kind of honouring one another. But it's difficult because people have their own lives. They don't, not just in a band. They have their own positives and their own negatives to deal with. Like two of my brothers died last year. My
Sorry.
eldest, my oldest brother died of cancer, and I was doing a record with him before he died, and he died at the end of August. But then my fourth eldest brother just died of a stroke at the beginning of June. So we're all dealing with our own triumphs and tragedies as well as having been in part of some ensemble. And there's always two sides to every story. No one's got the right to hold 100%. No one can say, this is my story, I'm right about everything. I don't think anyone can do that. It's just, we're on a journey, and we're probably on a journey to understanding, but we probably have to go through a bit of a terrain of difficulty to get there. I'd say that's probably the least
Yeah.
specific way I can, I
Yeah.
can discuss it. But I do like
Yeah. No,
salt and vinegar. Salt and vinegar's ace. Yeah.
pot vinegar's good. Prawn cocktail.
I quite like prawn cocktail because no one else likes it. So if you go,
Oh,
we've got like a goodies cupboard here that
yeah.
Kelly puts stuff in. I've got to say, I opened it up earlier, and there was some ancient Etruscan relics in there. There's
Oh, no.
bits of Tutankhamun's codpiece. It was there's a lot of things in there. There's chocolates in there. I don't know how it gets in there. It must be some sort of
Yeah.
Star Trek thing.
Do
Which
they
is
disappear as well? Do they just disappear? And
yeah,
then,
it does. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Kelly's quite naive. She puts all the shovels, all this stuff in with a great big spade, and then, like, after about a week, it's like, "Where's it all gone?"
Yeah. There's just some
No
magic.
idea where it's gone. Brushing my teeth for the fourth time
Fair enough.
in the day.
So, having this album out now, then, how would you personally encourage people to download it if they haven't already?
Well, you can buy it on vinyl from Bandcamp, and if you
Nice.
type in Tom Hingley Bandcamp
I'll put a link in the
Grand
description. You
Mal,
can click on
yeah,
it. They'll be
you
able to
could
click.
you can get it as a down. You can listen to it on Spotify and Apple and lots of other different streaming brands. I think Kelly may be joining us for the interview.
Nice.
You joining us for the interview, Cal?
You're very
Do you want to
welcome.
come and join us for the interview with Carl? We've just been talking about our snap drawer and how all the stuff amazingly disappears out of it. Where do you reckon it goes, Carl? In me, she said.
Yeah, but
Yeah, good answer. Yeah, so you can listen to it on most streaming sites. If you buy the album, you get like a QR code on it, and it takes you through to a microsite. Oh, how very posh! Which gives you some biography for each song, tells you who played on the stuff and produced it, and you can also stream it on your phone or whatever. So it's quite a sophisticated offer for
yeah.
slightly balding 59-year-old crisp acolyte.
And how's the tour been?
It's all right. It's good. I mean, it's like we've just done two gigs where with this. It's called Tom Hingley and Musicians. We just did a gig last week at the Castle Hotel on the 27th of September, and that was well attended. It's only like it's the back part of a pub. It's a brilliant venue,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
we put gigs on there. I love the castle.
yeah, and it was packed full of people. And then we did the gig last night in the little bar outside of Dingwall's called Dingwall's 2. It wasn't quite so well attended, but it was a really lovely night. And my sister Helen came, my brother Martin came, this guy called Dave Wilson came, who used to live in Manchester, used to put like warehouse parties on in the 80s. He used to put bands like the Bodines on. He used to have this building in Chinatown that he owned. So he came. So a lot of old faces there, a couple of sort of big Inspirals fans like Wendy Gabriel and Sean McManus. They came. So so those gigs were interesting because we were just playing stuff off the album. We're doing is just playing the album from start to finish, nothing else. And it was quite nice playing new material because it's a bit like I love playing the Inspiral stuff, and having that as a calling card is a fantastic positive thing to have in one's career and in one's arsenal. But it's a bit like I've just spent the last 30 years being a welder, and I've realised that maybe I could have spent the last 15 years being a riveter rather than a welder. You know what I mean? But I mean that in a workmanlike way. I mean in a positive
Yeah.
way. I can variate what I do a bit more. for everyone's benefit, I think.
Well, you're off. I know you're off to a gig tonight. Really appreciate your time joining us today, Tom. It's very much appreciated. Just a personal one from me. Just hearing your voice through the years, growing up, getting into music, and having that relationship with your voice has always been a special place. Has always held a little special place with me personally. So I just really appreciate you joining us for the podcast today, and enjoy your gig tonight, mate. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think you should never smother enthusiasm wherever you find it. And it's lovely what you said about the record. I think the record's really good. It's had like a universal positive sort of reaction. It's a slightly old album, some of it's acoustic, some of it's a bit electro, some of it's a bit garagey, but it's sort of, it's a bit cathartic for the kind of experience that you went through with the lockdown. And, it was also an album I did before I got into meditation. So I think I'm probably in a slightly more positive aspect than I did this album. But but I think I've got an adage in life which is don't expect anything and always be grateful for everything you get. So like your great love of what I've done in the past my voice is it's greatly appreciated, and hopefully the next time you come and see me play, you'll hear my beautiful voice being partly obscured by packet of salt and vinegar. Or
that's what I said. That's what I'm going to bring you. I'm going to surprise you with a nice bag of crisps, mate.
Yeah, I quite like. I'm trying to what other crisps I like. I mean, sometimes you go abroad. We quite like Lay's. There's like a Polish deli, or
aren't they just Walkers though, but just abroad?
No, they taste different. They're made in a different factory, and they kind of no, they don't. They're slightly different. It's I can't put me. We quite often go out and buy these Lay's crisps, which are
they love paprika abroad, don't they? They're heavily into paprika.
I'm not prepared to discuss it. Sorry, Carl. That was something that we weren't supposed to discuss. I did say I said paprika and other kind of spicy, kind of desiccated, pepper-based products were not to be discussed in this interview. And I think it's a bit like next you'll be talking about saffron and stuff like that. I'm just not prepared.
Storm out like the Bee Gees did that time.
Was it? No. Yeah, of course. No, they're very nice. Yeah. I mean, I think there's that Core Fresh are a good brand, aren't they? I mean, I think that's stuff that's more sort of South Asian derived. I think Core Fresh have got some really. They've got these lime and chili things that look like sort of I don't know. And like it's like you get one that's just, you get like a pack that's as big as a pillow, and you think, oh, that'll see me through to February, and then 4.5 minutes later, you've got all these little bits of your mouth is exploding, and you've got all these little bits of rip around your face, and they're all gone.
I did have some McCall's recently, and I got a bit giddy, and it stabbed the top of my mouth, and it hurt for a long time. So be careful as well, people. If you,
I think that's kind of a sort of, maybe it's like Chris spiritualism or like a Chris seance. And I don't want to be horrible, I don't know very well, but I think you were probably being punished for some kind of moral bad that you did in a previous life. And
I think you're right, mate.
I think possibly bringing up the subject of paprika with Shakin' Stevens when he told you that you weren't to do that. And I don't want to be harsh about it, but I think in a very real way you deserved it, and I hope you learned from the experience.
What a perfect way to end the interview. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate your time, mate.
If people want to find out about gigs, just go to tomhingley.co.uk, because for the last 5 months we didn't have any of them listed on there.
Right, okay, fair enough. Well, I'm going to put all the links that we described anyway today, so you don't have to go far. Just click in the link under the description, wherever you're listening or watching this thing.
And what are you going to play, Carl? What are you going to play on the show?
What's that?
What songs, what tracks are you going to play from the album? Are you playing some tracks off my album?
Oh, no, we can't, because it goes out on Apple and Spotify.
Oh, okay.
So we get done for they take shows off if you play music. We can't
play enough. Well,
so we put a link for people to buy it straight from you.
That's perfect. Well, thank you very much, Carl. You're a good person. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry that you damaged your upper palate in a crisp-related incident, and I'm sorry if I suggest there was some kind of moral laxity that was involved in the occurrence of that, and I want to withdraw any comments. Although I'm still angry about the paprika reference, but we'll let it go on this occasion.
But don't do it. But if you do it twice, then that's it. The relationship's over.
Thanks very much, Carl.
Thanks, Tom. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my little studio. We're just having a look around. This is where I record loads of good chats, and you know that already because you've just finished one. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed it, have a look around. Look at this. There's different videos all around here. New videos that you can enjoy too. I promise you it'll be all right. Nice one. Thanks for tuning in again, guys. See you soon.